welcome to the Spotlight session. So we're just going to do this as a Q&A. So if anyone's got anything they would like to ask about any of the things Hannah and I talked about this morning on governance, regulatory assurance, market engagement, probably anything non-testing related we can probably give a go at. If you do have a question, we've got some mics going round, so please do put up your hand and we'll get one of those to you. Who would like to kick us off?
And let us know who you are and where you're from.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah. We'll just get a mic. Thank you.
Hello, Vicky McClure, QBE. Will we be doing the regulatory notification after we've finished testing now?
Well, it's a good question, actually, because of the change now on the timing. So as I was saying this morning, I think, to the CROs, well, once we've got the more detailed testing plan that was referred to, we'll take a bit of a step back on that. When you put in one of these notifications, you put it on the basis that you are reasonably confident that you can sign the contract in 4 weeks' time. 4 weeks is the standard amount. So you're saying to the regulator, we're not fully there yet. We're not 100% comfortable in everything we need to. We might still have some risk management or assurance work to do, and we may have some testing still to do. So you can put one of these notifications in on the basis that you're pretty confident, but you're not 100% there yet. And the reason that's important is because it gives the regulator a chance to say, oh, well, we've got some questions for you around that. I mean, they will never approve or not approve. That's not their job on this. It's up to each individual entity. But they might want to ask some questions, so it gives them that period of time. But it's entirely reasonable to say, well, you know, we've done, I'm just going to pick a number, 90% of testing, and we're pretty confident. We haven't fully done it yet. By the time the termination letter is signed, that last point that we had on the schedule, there we are, the last point, that's the real kind of end point, cutover point. And at that point, everyone needs to be as confident as they need to get around the cutover. So at that point, there won't be testing still to do. At that point, it will all need to have been done. So that's the key cutoff point. But the notification can go in at a slightly earlier stage.
One last question. Sorry, I don't know if that's working.
It is.
It is, sorry.
Yeah.
You can
I can hear.
One last question. Are you also engaging with the NBB at all?
We are, yes. So there will be a separate notification from LIC, from LIC in Belgium. They will do that to the NBB. Effectively, I'm hoping that we can get to a position where it's effectively the same thing as we will be giving to the PRA and the FCA. So it won't be a whole new construct that we'll have to put together. But yes, there'll be a separate notification to the NBB.
And so will there be a plan of when, once we know how we're doing in testing, obviously, at some point will we get that plan of events? Because we'll have to try and make sure our governance aligns to it and what's happening.
I absolutely agree. So we will have to have the dates defined for those key submission points you can see on the slide, particularly that notification template and the termination letter, so we can all sequence our governance around that.
What we wanted to do today was demonstrate the sequencing of the events and the activities that would need to sit underneath each of those things. And of course, in light of the postponement that we announced on Friday, we can't append dates to that yet. And as you heard from Bob and Chris today, we're not going to do that. We're not going to come out with a new cutover date until we're really confident that it's safe to do so. But essentially expect this, and then an overlay of when that's going to be when we get to the appropriate moment. But the activities will be the same and in the sequence of which we spoke about today. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Henry Withenshaw from Newline. Quick question. It was good news to hear earlier that you will be trying to get dual platforms arranged or agreed at the same time by the regulator. Could you elaborate a bit more on that? I know you were pressed for time this morning with that. So.
I mean, not much more, Henry, if I'm honest. I mean, we're trying to get to a pragmatic position with the PRA around it. I mean, they've actually said conceptually that should work, i.e. we should be able to do a notification that encompasses dual platform. The complicated bit is working out which legal entity that actually relates to. And if you're an organisation that has managing agent, insurance company, maybe a service company in there as well. So we just need to figure out how that's going to work. And that's a bit complicated. And I think may end up looking slightly different for different organisations, depending on how they've set it up. So not much more in terms of detail, but conceptually, they kind of get the point on that, I would say.
Thanks, David.
Hello, Carl Smith from Lockton. I just want to check I've understood it. Most of what you're talking about relates to managing agents. Is a similar sort of schedule of activity plan for brokers?
Well,
Or given your job title, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, so the short answer, given my job title, is no. However, we have had, just because we thought it would be helpful, some conversations with the FCA to say, well, what do you think you need from the brokers? I would say the answer hasn't been particularly definitive. It's not like the position we're in with the PRA, where we've got a very clear sense of what we're doing. LIBA have also been engaging with the FCA to try and tease this out. The position as we think we understand it is the FCA are not expecting anything from the brokers. However, I would say at this point, I mean, again, it's not really my role to say so, but I'll say it anyway. I think it would be a good idea if you're a broker and you think this is a material outsourcing arrangement to pick up the phone to your supervisor and ask that question yourself.
I mean, our assessment is if it's not material outsourcing.
Then I think you're probably fine.
Yeah.
If you think it is and you're a broker, I think picking up the phone is a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Thanks. Data room. Will you be changing the dates for the artifacts to align to the change of dates slippage?
Yes, is the short answer. So the dates that are in there at the moment will be updated. Yeah,
Any idea when?
I don't.
2
know.
weeks?
I don't know.
In some cases, it depends on when we might know they're going to be, and as we've heard today, or as we've discussed today, there's some elements that we're going to come to later, but we're looking at that in light of the news that was shared on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Please.
Thanks, Christine.
Hi there, Elias Razi, Indigo Insurance. The data room, it doesn't seem possible to download any documents and share them. Is that sort of deliberate? They seem very secured.
Yeah. So the one document that you can download and share from the data room is the white paper, and actually that's quite a useful document to send around to anyone who wants to have a look at it. The rest of the documents in the data room, as we set it up at the moment, are restricted, so you can't download them. That's been set up deliberately. So it's set up as if it were, say, a deal room. So there's restricted access into it. There's an audit trail of who accesses it. So we can make the determination on a document-by-document basis as to whether they can be shared more broadly. But at the moment, our starting point is to make sure that that is restricted to the people who have got access. Having said that, if additional people in your organisations need access, then obviously we can give it to them.
Just to refer back to what David said about the white paper as well, depending on who your audience is, particularly if you're thinking about exec or board level, the exec summary within the white paper sits on the Blueprint 2 website as well, so you don't need the data room access to be able to access that content. That's up there on the website and can be shared broadly across your organisation. The intention is for that exec or high-level audience.
Okay. Yeah, I think something like the Vanguard testing stuff would be quite handy to download and share sort of internally.
I think you make a really good point, actually, and there's been a bit of feedback on that in previous sessions. So I think that's something that we'll take away and put into the programme. I think they'll need to have a think about that.
Yeah, agree. Thank you.
Thanks. James Reed, Canopius. Just in terms of the termination letter, I'm assuming, or maybe wrongly, is there any change to the timelines for that to actually be released? Just in respect of the delay, and obviously we need to see the termination letter before anyone can think about signing the DPSA?
Yeah, absolutely you do. And I think that's a really important point, actually. In terms of when the draft termination letter is going to go out, I don't know exactly. But there is a conversation going on at the moment with the LMA who are looking at it. We're also looking at it from a Lloyd's perspective because we're also involved in it. So I think there still needs to be a bit of time to go through some of the points of detail on that. But I hope it's pretty soon.
I will keep you updated. You know, Chris talked about comms before. We'll let you know as soon as we know.
Looks like we might have exhausted. Oh, no, we've got another one. Thank you.
Davin Lawton-Bryce at Villa. I think on one of your slides, David, you talked about sort of no regrets, sort of stuff we should be doing now. So I wasn't at the session this morning, but what should sort of CROs and risk compliance professionals be doing now whilst you wait for sort of revised timelines?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Sorry, I think that's a good question. So there is some information already in the data room beyond the white paper. So starting to look at that now, I think, is a good idea. Starting to think about what are the governance constructs in your business. So what committees need to get involved in, what working groups should be set up, how the functions working together. Does everyone understand the sequencing? I mean, we'll keep going back to the point that we don't have a clear date on this yet, but does that make sense to everyone? And the other, I think, really big kind of no regret set of actions is the kind of awareness. And Hannah talked earlier about some of the sessions we've been running, or Progress has been running for board chairs, the NED sessions at the LMA that they've started. And there's a bit of a balance here, actually, because with the timeline now extending, we probably just need to think about not overloading people with those sessions, but trying to bring the relevant individuals in the business up to speed. Again, the white paper is a good place to start. It's not too long. You can sort of get your head around it if you're a non-technical specialist. So I think that kind of awareness raising at this stage is pretty important, because there's an important point around the timeline, which I will say, and we talked about this in the CRO session this morning. It's important, whilst getting a bit of perspective on sequencing that, not to lose the momentum. So obviously testing is a big part of not taking the foot off the gas on that. But equally, some of the engagement that we're now getting with these board chair sessions, these NED sessions, these type of conversations, making sure that that awareness is starting to tick up in the organisation. I think it's important not to lose that. So I think those are the type of things that we can all carry on doing. And we've got a little bit of breathing room over the summer as well, which is probably helpful, not least for the teams who've been working very hard on all of this. But I think those will be good no regrets actions.
Yeah, David's right, particularly from that chair session that he's just mentioned that we ran a couple of weeks ago, and we've got the second one coming up on Wednesday. Actually, just the awareness raising and the engagement at that level has been, well, to use the phrase, no regrets activity, very much so. We're going to have to refresh that at the appropriate time, but I think just that context setting and level of understanding has been helpful. For yourselves, we'll be running another progress session in September, as David says, take a little bit of a break for the summer, but as testing is repan and we begin to run that up and continue momentum, there will be more things to share in September. If you have feedback on how we run these or anything more that you'd like to see or do that we can support you on, then you know where we are. You know, we put these together based on your feedback. So give it to us and we can shape it in a way that works for you. Thank you. One over here.
Thank you. Like Vicky, I've got a supplemental. Are you satisfied with the information that you're getting from Velanetic about the data copying assurance and the assurance they're putting around that? Obviously, we get no sight of it as managing agents, just talking here from the managing agency community. We're going to get a lot of our own testing done in our own managing agencies, so we can give a lot of assurance to our boards on that. But the data side is a bit that we don't get any sight of at all. And Lloyd's going to have to do quite a good job on our behalf for that. So my question, are you satisfied with the assurance you're going to get?
No, not yet. And we will need to be, because that's a key part of it. There will be assurance on the data copying or data migration, however we're describing it. We will need to look at that pretty closely, Henry, as well, for our own purposes. So we will look at it, but we've not done it yet.
Yeah, I didn't mean yes. I mean, in terms of what they've set out about they've talked about numbers of rows and all this kind of stuff. And what I'm trying to get at is, from what you have seen of what you're going to get from PwC, does it look like it's going to be satisfactory for you?
I'm honestly just going to have to see it until we take that view. And I think that's a really important point around the assurance. So, as always with these things, it's the scope of the assurance, which I think is where you're going, that's so important, so that everyone can understand what the assurance provider has looked at and what they haven't looked at, because no assurance provider looks at everything. And understanding on the basis of that scope, you can then interpret the results when you see them. So I'm not, holding hostage to it, but I just want to see what the scope is, and then we'll look at the results on that basis.
Thanks again.
Any more questions?
I think we might have exhausted the enthusiasm on everything regulatory.
We got a few, to be fair.
But thank you very much for your questions. Hannah and I are staying around for a little bit longer, so if
Yeah.
anything does occur to you towards the end of the session, come and ask us.